Daddy, does she mean I'm not crazy? Those were the words that changed everything. But to understand how we got there, you need to hear what happened 17 minutes earlier. When Margot Henley, a housekeeper who'd been invisible for 5 days, stood outside a locked door and heard a child begging someone, anyone, to believe her. When Graham Ashford, a billionaire who thought he was giving his daughter the best care money could buy, discovered he'd been poisoning her for 18 months. When an 8-year-old girl named Natalie finally had someone listen to what she'd been screaming all along. Something is wrong with my medicine, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up. Welcome to VickyTale. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Margot Henley stood in the hallway of the West Wing, her cleaning cart abandoned 3 feet behind her, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. She'd been working at the Ashford estate for exactly 5 days. 5 days of polishing marble that already gleamed. 5 days of dusting antiques worth more than her entire life savings. 5 days of being invisible, just another member of the staff in a mansion with 40 rooms and secrets buried in every corner. But today, standing outside this door, this forbidden, locked from the outside door, Margot couldn't be invisible anymore. Because behind that door, someone was crying. Not the confused, aimless crying of dementia. Not the frustrated crying of a tantrum. This was different. This was the crying of someone who knew exactly what was wrong and couldn't make anyone understand. Margot knew that sound. She'd heard it 100 times during her 8 years as a geriatric nurse. The sound of a patient whose pain was being dismissed, whose truth was being labeled confusion, whose voice was being erased by people who were supposed to help them. Please, I know something's wrong with me. Why won't anyone believe me? Margot's hand moved toward the door before her brain could stop it. She knocked. 3 soft raps that felt like thunder in the quiet hallway. The crying stopped immediately. Margot held her breath. Then a small voice, young, female, barely above a whisper. "Who's there?" "My name is Margot," she said softly, pressing her palm against the door. I work here. Are you okay?" A bitter laugh, so out of place coming from what sounded like a child. "No, but nobody cares." "I care," Margot said, and meant it with every fiber of her being. "Can you tell me what's wrong?" "The door's locked. It's always locked." Margot's blood ran cold. "Locked from the outside?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because I'm dangerous." The girl's voice was flat, emotionless. The tone of someone who'd been told something so many times they'd started to believe it. "Because I'm sick. Because I might hurt myself or someone else. That's what Dr. Whitley says." Margot closed her eyes, medical training flooding back instantly. "How old are you, sweetheart?" 8. Almost 9. 8 years old. Locked in a room. Told she was dangerous. "What's your name?" A pause, then, "Natalie. Natalie Ashford." Ashford, Graham Ashford's daughter, the one Margot had heard whispers about in the kitchen. The poor girl who'd never recovered from her mother's death, who'd had some kind of breakdown, who was too disturbed to be around other people. "Natalie, I need you to do something for me," Margot said, keeping her voice calm and professional. "I need you to tell me exactly how you feel, not what the doctors say is wrong with you, what you feel in your own body." Another pause, then words tumbling out in a desperate rush. "Fuzzy, everything's fuzzy, like I'm watching my life through a dirty window. My hands shake, but not all the time, just randomly. Sometimes I can taste colors, which I know sounds crazy, which is probably why I'm in here, but I swear it's real. My thoughts feel slow, like I'm trying to think through mud. And I'm tired, so tired, all the time. Even though I sleep 12, 14 hours a day, I wake up exhausted." Margot's heart sank. Every single symptom Natalie described pointed to one thing: medication side effects, severe ones. "Natalie, what medications are you taking?" "I don't know all their names. There are a lot of them. Different colored pills. I take some in the morning, some at lunch, some before bed." "How many total?" "Maybe 10, 12? I stopped counting. 10 to 12 medications. For an 8-year-old. Margot felt rage building in her chest. The same rage she'd felt 2 years ago when she watched another nurse harm a patient through negligence, and then blame Margot for it. The same rage that had cost her everything. But this time, she wasn't going to stay silent just to protect herself. "Natalie, I'm going to help you, but I need to talk to your father first." "Can you hold on a little longer?" "I've been holding on for 18 months, Natalie said quietly. "I guess I can hold on a little more." Margot pressed her forehead against the door. "You're not crazy, Natalie, and you're not dangerous. Something is wrong, but it's not what they think. Do you believe me?" "I want to." The girl's voice cracked. "I want to so bad." "Then believe me, I'm going to fix this." Margot straightened up, turned away from the door, and walked directly into a wall of muscle and expensive cologne. Graham Ashford stood 3 feet behind her, his face carved from stone, his eyes blazing with fury. "My office," he said, voice deadly quiet. "Now!" Graham Ashford's office was everything Margot expected. Dark wood, leather furniture, walls covered with architectural blueprints and renderings of luxury developments. Models of skyscrapers and hotel complexes lined the shelves where other men might keep books. What she didn't expect was the photograph on his desk. A stunning blonde woman with laughing eyes holding a tiny dark-haired girl who was maybe 5 years old. Both of them covered in paint, both of them radiating pure joy. Catherine and Natalie, Margot realized, before everything fell apart. Graham shut the door behind them with controlled precision, the movement of a man working very hard not to explode. "You were told," he said, each word clipped and cold, "on your first day, explicitly, not to go near that wing, not to interact with my daughter, not to involve yourself in family matters." "I heard crying," Margot started. "She cries often," Graham interrupted. "It's part of her condition." "What condition exactly?" His jaw tightened. "Severe childhood depression, complicated grief disorder, trauma-induced behavioral issues? Take your pick. She has all of them." "According to whom?" "According to Dr. Richard Whitley, one of the top child psychiatrists in the country. According to the team of specialists who've been treating her for the past 18 months. According to every medical professional who's examined her." Margot took a breath, choosing her words carefully. "Mr. Ashford, I know you told me to stay out of family business, and I know I'm risking my job by saying this, but I'm a trained nurse with 8 years of experience in patient care, and what I just heard from your daughter—" "You're a housekeeper," Graham cut her off, standing to his full height. 6'3" of barely restrained anger and exhaustion. "You're not her doctor. You're not qualified to make assessments about her mental health." "You're right," Margot said, holding her ground. "I'm not qualified to diagnose her, but I am qualified to recognize medication side effects when I hear them described. And Mr. Ashford, every single symptom your daughter just told me about, the brain fog, the tremors, the synesthesia, the constant fatigue, those aren't depression symptoms. Those are neurological symptoms of drug toxicity." Graham's face went white. "That's impossible. Dr. Whitley is one of the most respected psychiatrists in New York. He's treated senators' children, celebrities' children. He came with the highest recommendations." "I don't doubt his credentials," Margot said carefully. "But Mr. Ashford, when was the last time you actually researched the medications your daughter is taking? The combinations, the dosages, the potential interactions?" "That's what I pay Dr. Whitley for," Graham said, but his voice had lost some of its certainty. "I build buildings, Ms. Henley. I develop properties. I don't have medical training. When my daughter got sick, I did what any father would do. I hired the best specialists money could buy and trusted them to take care of her." "And I understand that," Margot said gently. "But Mr. Ashford, has Natalie gotten better since Dr. Whitley started treating her? Or has she gotten worse?" The silence that followed was deafening. Graham sank into his chair, suddenly looking every one of his 43 years and then some. He stared at the photograph on his desk, his wife and daughter, frozen in a moment of happiness that felt like it belonged to a different lifetime. "Catherine died 18 months ago," he said finally, voice rough. "Cancer, aggressive, fast-moving. She went from diagnosis to gone in 4 months. One day we were planning Natalie's 7th birthday party, and 4 months later I was planning my wife's funeral." I'm so sorry, Margot said quietly. Natalie found her. Graham's eyes were fixed on the photo. I was at a development site in Manhattan, emergency meeting about structural issues on a high-rise project, and Catherine had a seizure. She fell in the bathroom. Natalie heard the crash and found her mother unconscious on the floor. Catherine died 2 days later without ever waking up. Margot's heart broke for the little girl locked in that room. That's incredibly traumatic. Natalie stopped speaking for 3 weeks after the funeral. Just shut down completely. When she finally started talking again, she wasn't the same. She had nightmares every night. She'd wake up screaming. She became aggressive, throwing things, hitting the staff. I didn't know what to do. I'm good at building things, at negotiating deals, at turning empty lots into billion-dollar properties. But helping my daughter process trauma? He shook his head. I was completely lost. So you brought in specialists? I brought in the best. Dr. Whitley came with recommendations from 3 different families in my social circle. Their children had behavioral issues, and Dr. Whitley helped them. I thought, Graham's voice cracked, I thought he would help Natalie too. What did he tell you was wrong with her? He evaluated her for 3 hours and diagnosed her with severe childhood depression, compounded by traumatic grief. He said without aggressive treatment, she could become a danger to herself. He prescribed medications to help stabilize her mood, help her sleep, help her cope. And did they help? Graham's expression crumbled. At first I thought so. The screaming stopped. The aggression stopped. She became quiet, manageable. I thought that meant she was healing. I threw myself back into work. We were breaking ground on the Ashford Tower project, the biggest development of my career. I told myself Natalie was in good hands, that the doctors knew what they were doing, that I was helping her by providing the best care money could buy. But every time I actually spent time with her, she seemed more gone, more withdrawn, more confused. She'd forget things she'd known her whole life. She'd stare into space for hours. Her hands would shake when she tried to draw, and drawing was her favorite thing. I mentioned it to Dr. Whitley, and he said it was the depression deepening. He adjusted her medications, added new ones. Graham's hands clenched into fists. The more medications he prescribed, the worse she seemed to get, but he kept saying it was normal, that we just hadn't found the right combination yet. Margot's hands clenched. This was exactly the pattern she'd seen before. Doctors treating side effects as symptoms, adding more drugs to counteract the problems caused by the original drugs, creating a cascade of chemical harm. Mr. Ashford, Graham, he said tiredly, if you're going to tell me I've been poisoning my daughter, at least use my first name. Graham, Margot said gently, I don't think you've been intentionally harming Natalie. I think you've been doing exactly what you said, trusting experts in a field you don't understand. But I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Has Dr. Whitley ever disclosed any financial relationships with pharmaceutical companies? Graham frowned. What do you mean? I mean, does he receive money from drug manufacturers, consulting fees, speaking fees, research grants, anything that might create a conflict of interest in what he prescribes? Graham hesitated. I don't know. Why would that matter? Because doctors who have financial ties to pharmaceutical companies have been shown to prescribe those companies' drugs more frequently, often in higher doses and in combinations that may not be in the patient's best interest. It's a massive conflict of interest, and it's supposed to be disclosed to patients. Graham's face went from pale to red. Are you suggesting Dr. Whitley is prescribing medications to my daughter for profit? I'm suggesting it's a possibility we need to investigate. Graham, your daughter is on 10 to 12 different medications. That's not normal, even for severe psychiatric cases. And the symptoms she's describing, tasting colors, extreme fatigue, cognitive fog, tremors, those are classic signs of medication toxicity, not depression. How do you know all this? Graham asked, studying her intently. Mrs. Brennan told me you were hired as a housekeeper, but you're talking like someone with extensive medical knowledge. Margot took a breath. This was the moment she'd been avoiding since she took this job. The moment when she had to admit who she really was and risk losing everything again. I have a medical degree, she said quietly. I was a geriatric nurse for 8 years, specializing in medication management for elderly patients. I've seen exactly what's happening to Natalie happen to dozens of patients. Over-medication leading to a cascade of side effects that get treated as new symptoms, leading to even more medications. Then why are you working as a housekeeper? Because 2 years ago, another nurse made a medication error that nearly killed a patient. When the patient crashed, she blamed me. By the time the truth came out and I was cleared, my reputation was destroyed. No hospital would hire me. No care facility would take me. I lost my nursing license during the investigation, and even though I eventually got it back, the gap in my resume and the whisper of scandal made me unemployable in medicine. She met his eyes. I took this job because I was 3 months behind on rent, and my car was about to be repossessed. I needed money, and cleaning houses was the only work I could find. I never intended to get involved in medical issues again. But when I heard your daughter crying, when I heard her begging someone to listen, her voice broke. I couldn't walk away, not when I have the knowledge to help. Graham stared at her for a long moment. She could see him processing, evaluating, deciding whether to trust her or throw her out. Finally, he spoke. Show me. Show you what? Show me what you see that I'm missing. Because Ms. Henley, Margot, if there's even a chance that you're right, that my daughter is suffering because of medications that are supposed to be helping her, his voice cracked. I need to know. I need to fix it. Margot nodded. I'll need to see her complete medical file. Every medication, every dosage, every prescription change. And Graham, I think we should bring in an independent specialist. Someone who has no financial ties to drug companies. Someone who specializes in pediatric medication management. Who? There's a doctor at Johns Hopkins, Dr. Sarah Kim. She's a pediatric psychiatrist who specializes in trauma and safe medication practices. She's published research on over-medication in children. If anyone can evaluate Natalie objectively, it's her. Graham was already pulling out his phone. What's her number? I'll get it for you. But Graham, before you call her, I think you need to see Natalie's medical file for yourself. Really see it. Not as a father who's trusting experts, but as a man who built a billion-dollar empire by paying attention to details. Graham moved to a cabinet in the corner of his office, unlocking it with a key from his desk. He pulled out a thick file folder and placed it on the desk between them. These are copies of all her medical records since Catherine died. Dr. Whitley insisted I keep them secure. Margot opened the file and her stomach turned. The medication list was even worse than she'd feared. Margot spread the medical documents across Graham's desk, organizing them chronologically. What emerged was a pattern so clear, so damning, that she felt sick. Look at this, she said, pointing to the first evaluation from Dr. Whitley. 18 months ago, right after Catherine died, Natalie's initial diagnosis, adjustment disorder with mixed anxiety and depressed mood. That's actually a relatively normal response to losing a parent. Okay, Graham said, leaning forward. His initial prescription, 1 medication, sertraline, a common antidepressant, standard dosage for a child. That alone would have been reasonable. So what went wrong? Margot flipped to the next report, dated 2 weeks later. This. Natalie came back for a follow-up, and she reported feeling weird and shaky. That's a common side effect of starting an SSRI antidepressant. Most doctors would either reduce the dose or wait for the side effects to subside as her body adjusted. What did Dr. Whitley do? He added 2 more medications, 1 for anxiety, 1 for sleep. Look at the notes. He wrote that her shakiness indicated worsening anxiety and her sleep disturbance required immediate intervention. Graham's eyes narrowed. But you're saying the shakiness was from the first medication? Exactly. He treated a side effect as a new symptom. Margot moved to the next report. 1 month later, Natalie reported feeling foggy and having trouble concentrating in school. Again, this is a known side effect of the combination he prescribed. But instead of reducing her medications, he added more. Graham finished, his voice hollow. A stimulant to counteract the sedation. Now she's on 4 medications at age 7. The pattern continued, month after month. Natalie would report a symptom. Dr. Whitley would add a medication. The new medication would cause side effects. Those side effects would be treated as new symptoms requiring additional medications. By month 6, Natalie was on 8 medications. By month 12, she was on 10. By month 15, just 3 months ago, she was on 12 medications, some at dosages that made Margot's hands shake as she read them. "This one," Margot said, pointing to a drug called ketamine. "This is an antipsychotic. It's serious medication, usually reserved for conditions like schizophrenia or severe bipolar disorder." "Why is your 8-year-old daughter on an antipsychotic?" Graham's face was ashen. I don't know. Dr. Whitley said she needed mood stabilization. He used the term a typical antipsychotic and said it was commonly used for depression. It can be used for treatment-resistant depression in adults in low doses as a last resort. But Graham, look at this dosage. This is what we'd give to an adult man twice her weight with active psychotic symptoms. And look at what he wrote in his notes to justify it. Graham read aloud, his voice shaking. "Patient continues to display emotional dysregulation and reports experiencing unusual sensory phenomena, increasing antipsychotic to manage emerging psychotic features." "The unusual sensory phenomena," she reported, Margot said quietly, "was tasting colors, which is a known side effect of this medication combined with this one." She pointed to 2 drugs on the list. He gave her a medication that caused synesthesia, then used that synesthesia to justify calling her psychotic and giving her an even stronger medication. Graham stood abruptly, pacing to the window. His shoulders were rigid, his hands clenched into fists. "Are you telling me," he said, voice dangerously soft, "that Dr. Whitley has been giving my daughter medications that make her sick, then using those symptoms to justify giving her more medications that make her even sicker?" "I'm telling you that's what this documentation suggests. Whether it was intentional malpractice or just incompetent prescribing, I can't say. But Graham, this has to stop. Today." "We can't just stop all her medications," Graham said, turning to face her. "Can we? I mean, even I know you can't just quit psychiatric medications cold turkey." "You're right. We can't stop them all at once. That would be dangerous, possibly life-threatening. She needs to be tapered off slowly, under medical supervision. That's why we need Dr. Kim." Graham pulled out his phone. "Give me her number. Now!" Margot searched on her phone and read off Dr. Kim's office number. Graham dialed immediately, putting the phone on speaker. "Johns Hopkins Pediatric Psychiatry. This is Melissa." "This is Graham Ashford. I need to speak with Dr. Sarah Kim immediately. It's an emergency regarding my 8-year-old daughter." "Dr. Kim is with a patient right now, Mr. Ashford. I can have her call you back." "This is a medical emergency," Graham said, his voice brooking no argument. "My daughter is on 12 psychiatric medications prescribed by another doctor, and I've just been informed she may be experiencing severe medication toxicity. I need Dr. Kim to evaluate her as soon as possible. Today, if at all feasible." There was a pause. "Hold, please." 2 minutes later, a woman's voice came on the line. "Mr. Ashford, this is Dr. Kim. Melissa said this is a medication emergency." "Dr. Kim, thank you for taking my call. I'm here with Margot Henley, a nurse who used to work in geriatric medication management. She's reviewed my daughter's medical files and believes Natalie is being over-medicated to a dangerous degree. Can you tell me how many medications and what they are?" Margot leaned toward the phone. "Dr. Kim, this is Margot. I'll text the complete list to this number. But we're looking at 12 concurrent medications, an SSRI, an SNRI, 2 benzodiazepines, an atypical antipsychotic at very high dose, a stimulant, 2 sleep medications, and several others for side effect management." There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. "For an 8-year-old? Yes, ma'am. And what symptoms is she experiencing?" "Severe cognitive impairment, tremors, synesthesia, extreme fatigue despite excessive sleep, emotional flatness, and progressive withdrawal. Her father reports she's gotten consistently worse over the 18 months since these medications were initiated." "Who prescribed this regimen?" Graham answered, "Dr. Richard Whitley." Another pause. "I see. Mr. Ashford, I'm going to be very direct with you. What you've described is medical negligence at best, potentially criminal negligence at worst. Your daughter needs immediate evaluation. Can you bring her to my office this afternoon? Absolutely. What time? I'm clearing my schedule. Bring her at 2 o'clock. Bring all medical records, all medication bottles, everything. And Mr. Ashford, don't give her any more doses of any medications until I've evaluated her. We may need to start a controlled taper immediately. Understood. Thank you, Dr. Kim. Don't thank me yet. Let's see what we're dealing with first. The call ended. Graham and Margot looked at each other. It's 10 a.m. now, Graham said. We have 4 hours. Then let's go talk to your daughter, Margot replied. She deserves to know what's happening. They walked through the mansion together, this billionaire who built empires and this disgraced nurse who'd found her purpose again, toward the West Wing where an 8-year-old girl waited behind a locked door, desperate to be believed. When Graham unlocked the door, Margot got her first full look at Natalie Ashford in daylight. The girl was tiny, sitting on an oversized bed in a room that looked more like a medical facility than a child's bedroom. Pale skin stretched over delicate bones. Dark circles carved crescents under eyes that should have sparkled with childhood mischief, but instead looked ancient and exhausted. Her hands trembled slightly as she gripped a worn stuffed rabbit, the only toy visible in the sterile room. But when Natalie looked up and saw her father standing in the doorway with Margot beside him, something flickered in those old, tired eyes. Hope. Hi, sweetheart, Graham said, his voice breaking slightly as he took in the full reality of his daughter's condition, something he'd been avoiding by keeping his visits brief and infrequent. Hi, Daddy. Natalie's voice was flat, emotionless, the voice of someone who'd learned that showing feeling only led to more medications, more doctors, more people telling her she was broken. Graham moved into the room slowly, like he was approaching something fragile and precious that he'd break if he moved too fast. He sat on the edge of Natalie's bed, keeping careful distance. Natalie, this is Margot. She's the one you talked to through the door earlier. Natalie looked at Margot with those ancient eyes. You said you'd help me. I am helping you, Margot said, moving to kneel beside the bed so she was at Natalie's eye level. Your dad and I have been looking at your medical files, and I think we figured out why you've been feeling so bad. Because I'm sick? Natalie's voice was small, resigned. No, sweetheart, because your medications are making you sick. Natalie blinked slowly, processing. That doesn't make sense. Medicine is supposed to make you better. Usually, yes, but sometimes when doctors give too many medications at once, or when they give the wrong combinations, or when they keep adding more medications instead of fixing the problem, the medicine itself becomes the poison. So I'm not crazy. The question came out so small, so frightened, that both Graham and Margot felt their hearts break. No, baby, Graham said, his voice thick with tears he was trying to control. You're not crazy. You've never been crazy. You're a little girl who lost her mother, who's been sad and scared, and who trusted adults to help her feel better. And I failed you. Natalie stared at her father like she was seeing him for the first time in months. You believe me? That something's wrong with the medicine? I believe you. I should have believed you a long time ago. You told me the pills made you feel weird. You told me you felt foggy and tired and wrong. And I didn't listen because I thought the doctors knew better. I'm so sorry, Natalie. I'm so sorry. Something cracked in Natalie's careful blankness. Her lip trembled. Her eyes filled with tears. The first real emotion Margot had seen cross her face. I tried to tell you, she whispered. I tried to tell Dr. Whitley. I tried to tell the nurses that the pills made everything worse, that I just wanted to feel normal again. But Dr. Whitley kept saying I needed to take them, that I'd get really sick if I didn't. And I was scared. Graham pulled his daughter into his arms, the first real embrace they'd shared in months. Natalie was stiff at first, like she'd forgotten how to be held. Then she melted into her father's chest and began to cry. Not the empty, medicated tears of the past year. Real, raw, grief-filled crying. The crying of a child who'd lost her mother and had never been allowed to properly mourn. Margot stepped back, giving them space, her own eyes burning with tears. This was why she'd become a nurse. This moment right here, when someone who'd been suffering finally felt heard, finally felt believed, finally felt safe enough to break down. After several minutes, Natalie pulled back from her father, wiping her eyes with shaking hands. "What happens now?" she asked. Graham looked at Margot, the question echoing in his eyes. "Now," Margot said gently, "we get you better. Really better. We're going to take you to see a different doctor this afternoon, Dr. Sarah Kim. She's a specialist who knows how to help kids get off medication safely. Natalie, I'm not going to lie to you. It won't be easy or fast. We have to reduce your medication slowly, carefully, so you don't get sick. But sweetheart, I promise you, we're going to help you feel like yourself again." "Will I?" Natalie hesitated. "Will I stop being so tired all the time?" "Yes." "Will my hands stop shaking?" "Yes." "Will I stop tasting colors when I eat?" Graham's head snapped up. "You taste colors?" Natalie nodded, looking ashamed. "Sometimes purple tastes like metal. Sometimes yellow tastes like soap. I told Dr. Whitley, and he said it meant I was having psychotic episodes. He said I was getting sicker." "It's not psychosis," Margot said firmly. "It's called synesthesia, and it's a side effect of two of your medications interacting with each other. When we get you off those medications, it will stop." Natalie's face transformed. The hope that had flickered earlier now blazed like a fire catching. "Really? It's not because I'm broken inside?" "You're not broken, baby," Graham said, pulling her close again. "You're not broken at all. I was wrong. Dr. Whitley was wrong. Everyone was wrong except you. You told us something was wrong, and you were right the whole time. I should have listened to you instead of the adults." "I'm scared, Daddy," Natalie whispered against his chest. "What if I get off the medications and I'm still really sad about Mommy? What if I can't stop being sad?" Graham's voice was thick with emotion as he held his daughter tighter. "Then we'll be sad together, sweetheart. But Natalie, you're allowed to be sad. You're allowed to miss your mother. That's not sickness, that's love. And we're going to find you a therapist who understands that. Someone who will help you remember Mommy, help you talk about her, help you cry about her without making you forget how to feel anything at all." Natalie nodded against her father's chest, then pulled back to look at Margot. "Thank you," she said simply. "Thank you for listening when nobody else would." Margot smiled through her tears. "Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for keeping your voice, even when everyone told you that you were wrong. You're braver than you know, Natalie." "We're going to see Dr. Kim at 2 o'clock, Graham said, smoothing his daughter's hair back from her face. A gesture so tender it made Margot's chest ache. "That gives us a few hours. What do you want to do until then?" Natalie looked confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean, do you want to have lunch, watch a movie, go outside? Anything you want. I'm allowed to leave this room?" Natalie's voice was so small, so shocked, that Graham visibly flinched. "Sweetheart, you were never supposed to be locked in here. Never. That was..." He stopped, clearly struggling with rage directed at himself and at the medical team he'd trusted. "That was wrong. So wrong. This is your home. You can go anywhere you want." Natalie looked around her sterile room, then back at her father. "Can we go to Mommy's studio? I haven't been there since she died," Graham finished gently. "Yes, baby, we can absolutely go to the studio." He stood, still holding Natalie's hand, and looked at Margot. "Would you come with us? Are you sure? That feels like a private family moment." "You're the reason this moment is happening at all," Graham said quietly. "Please, come with us." The three of them walked through the mansion together. Margot noticed how Natalie moved slowly, her steps uncertain, her hand gripping her father's like a lifeline. The medications had stolen more than just her emotions. They'd stolen her confidence, her coordination, her sense of safety in the world. But with each step away from that locked room, Margot could see something shifting in the girl's posture. Her shoulders came up slightly. Her breathing deepened. She was waking up. They reached a door on the second floor that Graham opened with a key. Inside was an art studio bathed in natural light from huge windows. Canvases lined the walls, some finished, some half done, all of them vibrant with color and life. Paint supplies covered every surface. Drop cloths protected the floor. The air still smelled faintly of oil paint and turpentine. Natalie stood in the doorway, frozen. She painted every day, Graham said softly. Even during chemo, especially during chemo. She said it was the only thing that made her feel alive when everything else was about dying. Natalie took a tentative step inside, her eyes moving from canvas to canvas. She stopped in front of a large painting of a dark-haired little girl running through a field of sunflowers, arms outstretched, face tilted toward the sky in pure joy. She was painting this the day before the seizure, Natalie whispered. It's me. She said she wanted to capture me the way she saw me, full of light. Graham stood behind his daughter, his hands on her shoulders. That's still who you are, sweetheart. Full of light. We just need to clear away all the things that have been dimming it. Natalie reached out to touch the painting, her fingers trembling. I miss her so much, Daddy. Every single day I miss her, and for so long I couldn't even cry about it. I wanted to cry, but the pills made everything feel like I was wrapped in cotton, like I was watching my own life from somewhere far away. I know, baby, I know. Do you miss her? Natalie asked, turning to look up at her father. Graham's face crumpled. Every second of every day. But you never cry. I cry, Graham said, his voice breaking. I've been doing it alone. In my office late at night when I should have been coming to check on you. At the construction sites when I'm supposed to be working. In the shower. In the car. I've been crying, Natalie. But I thought I had to be strong for you. I thought showing you my grief would make yours worse. Natalie threw her arms around her father's waist, and they held each other in the middle of Catherine's studio, both of them finally allowing themselves to break. Margot quietly moved to a corner of the room, giving them space. She found herself looking at another painting, a family portrait. Graham, Catherine, and a younger Natalie, all tangled together on a couch, laughing. The love radiating from that canvas was almost physical in its intensity. She painted that 2 years ago, Graham's voice came from behind her. Natalie was exploring the studio, running her fingers over her mother's brushes. Before the cancer, before everything fell apart, we were happy then. I took that happiness for granted. I thought we had all the time in the world. You couldn't have known, Margot said softly. No, but I could have been more present. I could have worked less. I could have... He stopped, shaking his head. I built an empire, Margot. 40-story towers, luxury hotels, developments worth billions. I can negotiate any deal, solve any structural problem, turn any failing property into a gold mine. But I couldn't save my wife, and I've been slowly losing my daughter without even realizing it. You're not losing her, Margot said firmly. You're finding her again. That's what today is, the beginning of finding each other again. Graham looked at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. How did you do that? How did you see in 5 days what dozens of doctors missed in 18 months? I listened to her, Margot said simply. Not to her symptoms, not to her diagnoses, to her. Your daughter has been trying to tell everyone what was wrong the whole time. She just needed someone to believe her words mattered more than a prescription pad. Daddy, look, Natalie called from across the room. She was holding up a sketchbook. Mommy was drawing me a comic book about a superhero girl who could fly. She never finished it. Graham moved to his daughter's side, looking at the unfinished sketches. Maybe you could finish it for her when you're feeling better, when your hand stops shaking and your mind stops feeling foggy. Really? You think I could? I think your mother would love that. I think she'd want you to keep creating, keep making art, keep finding joy and color in stories and imagination. Natalie hugged the sketchbook to her chest. Can I take this to my room? The real one, I mean, not the... She trailed off, unable to name the place she'd been locked away. You can take anything you want from here, Graham assured her. This studio is yours now. All of Mommy's art supplies, all her paintings, all of it. She would want you to have them. They spent the next hour in the studio. Natalie showed Margot her favorite paintings. Graham told stories about watching Catherine work, about how she'd get so absorbed in creating that she'd forget to eat or sleep. Slowly, carefully, they began to weave Catherine's memory back into their lives instead of keeping it locked away where grief couldn't touch them. At 1:30, Graham checked his watch. We should get ready to leave. Dr. Kim's office is a 40-minute drive. Natalie nodded, reluctantly setting down a canvas she'd been examining. Okay, but can I change my clothes first? These feel... She looked down at the shapeless pajamas she'd been wearing. I want to look normal. Of course, Graham said. Let's get you into real clothes. And Natalie, you are normal. You've always been normal. We just need to get you healthy again. As they walked back through the mansion, Margot felt her phone buzz. A text from an unknown number. This is Dr. Kim. I've been doing some research on Dr. Whitley while waiting for your appointment. We need to talk before you arrive. Some things you should know. Call me. Margot showed the text to Graham. His jaw tightened. Go ahead and call her, he said. I'll help Natalie get dressed. Meet us at the front entrance in 20 minutes. Margot nodded and stepped into an empty room, dialing Dr. Kim's number. Margot, thanks for calling back. Dr. Kim's voice was grim. I need to tell you something before you bring Natalie in. I looked up Dr. Whitley's disclosure records. All doctors have to report pharmaceutical relationships publicly. Do you want to know what I found? Yes. In the past 3 years, Dr. Whitley has received over $2 million in consulting fees, speaking fees, and research grants from pharmaceutical companies. And here's the kicker. The majority of that money came from just 3 companies, and every single medication he prescribed to Natalie is manufactured by one of those 3 companies. Margot felt sick. So it's not just negligence, it's financial incentive. It gets worse. I did some digging into complaints against him. There are 7 other families who filed reports with the medical board about similar situations. Children over-medicated to dangerous levels, all on drugs from the same 3 companies. The medical board has been investigating for 6 months, but these things move slowly. In the meantime, he's still practicing, still prescribing, still harming kids. Can we use this information? In Natalie's treatment? No. But in a potential legal case against him? Absolutely. Margot, when you bring her in, I'm going to need to document everything. Her current state, the medication levels in her system, all of it. Because what's been done to this child is criminal, and someone needs to be held accountable. Understood. We'll see you at 2. Margot ended the call and stood for a moment, processing. This wasn't just about saving one little girl. This was about exposing a system that allowed doctors to profit from harming children. When she met Graham and Natalie at the front entrance, Graham took one look at her face and said, "What did Dr. Kim tell you?" Margot glanced at Natalie, who was dressed in jeans and a purple sweater, looking more like a normal 8-year-old than she had in the sterile room. "Let's talk in the car," Margot said carefully. The drive to Johns Hopkins was tense. Graham's driver navigated through Baltimore traffic, while Graham sat in the back with Natalie. Margot was in the front passenger seat, but she turned to speak to Graham in a low voice while Natalie looked out the window. Dr. Whitley has received over $2 million from pharmaceutical companies in the past 3 years. Every medication he prescribed to Natalie comes from companies that pay him. Graham's face went white, then red with rage. That son of a... He stopped himself, glancing at Natalie. We're going to destroy him. Dr. Kim is documenting everything for a potential legal case. Apparently, there are 7 other families with similar complaints. 7 other children. Graham's voice was deadly quiet. 7 other families who trusted him to help their kids, and he poisoned them for profit. Natalie turned from the window. Are you talking about Dr. Whitley? Graham hesitated, then decided on honesty. Yes, sweetheart. We're learning that Dr. Whitley may have prescribed medications to you that weren't necessary because companies paid him to prescribe their drugs. He hurt me on purpose? Natalie's voice was small. For money? We don't know if it was on purpose, Margot interjected gently. But we do know he wasn't making decisions based solely on what was best for you. And that's not okay. Doctors are supposed to put their patients first. Always. I told him I felt bad, Natalie said, her voice gaining strength. I told him the pills made me feel worse, and he just gave me more pills. I thought it was my fault, that I was too broken to fix. You were never broken, Graham said fiercely, pulling his daughter close. And what he did, that's on him, not you. You were a child asking for help, and he failed you. But Natalie, I promise you, we're going to make sure he can never do this to another kid. They arrived at Johns Hopkins at 1:55 p.m., Dr. Kim's office was in the pediatric wing, decorated with colorful murals and comfortable furniture designed to put children at ease. Dr. Sarah Kim herself came out to greet them, a woman in her early 50s with kind eyes and a calm, competent demeanor that immediately put Margot at ease. "You must be Natalie," Dr. Kim said, kneeling down to Natalie's level. "I'm Dr. Kim. Thank you for coming to see me today." "Hi," Natalie said quietly. "I know you've seen a lot of doctors, and I know that hasn't been a great experience for you. So I want to make you a promise right now. I will listen to you. When you tell me something feels wrong, I will believe you. When you say something hurts or feels weird, I will take that seriously. Your words matter more than any test or diagnosis, okay?" Natalie's eyes filled with tears. "Okay, good. Now let's go into my office and figure out how to help you feel better." The evaluation took 3 hours. Dr. Kim was thorough, patient, and true to her word. She listened to every single thing Natalie said. She did cognitive tests, physical examinations, and reviewed every page of Natalie's medical history. When she finally emerged from the examination room, her expression was grim. "Mr. Ashford, Margot, can we talk privately?" They stepped into a consultation room while Natalie stayed in the exam room with a nurse, drawing with art supplies Dr. Kim had provided. "I've seen a lot of medical negligence in my career," Dr. Kim said without preamble. "But this is one of the worst cases I've encountered. That child has been systematically over-medicated to the point of chemical restraint. Her cognitive function is impaired. Her motor control is affected. She's experiencing multiple drug interactions that are causing neurological symptoms. And Mr. Ashford, if this had continued for another 6 months, we'd be looking at potentially permanent brain damage." Graham's hands clenched into fists. "How do we fix it?" "Very, very carefully. We need to taper her off these medications one at a time, starting with the most dangerous combinations. It's going to take months, possibly 6 to 8 months for a full taper, and she's going to go through withdrawal. Some of it will be physical, nausea, headaches, dizziness. Some will be emotional. As her feelings come back online, she's going to have to process 18 months of grief that's been chemically suppressed. It's not going to be easy." "But she'll recover?" Margot asked. "Physically, yes. Most of the neurological symptoms should resolve once we get her off these medications. Emotionally, she's going to need serious trauma therapy, both for losing her mother and for the medical abuse she's experienced. But she's young, and children's brains are remarkably resilient. With proper care, proper therapy, and a supportive environment, Natalie should make a full recovery." Graham let out a breath he'd been holding. "Tell me what we need to do." Dr. Kim pulled out a detailed treatment plan. "First, I need to see Natalie 3 times a week for the first month to monitor her closely as we begin the taper. Second, I'm recommending a trauma-specialized therapist. I have someone excellent who works with children who've lost parents. Third, you need to create the most stable, supportive home environment possible. No more locked rooms, no more isolation. She needs normalcy, routine, love, and the freedom to feel her feelings without being told she's sick for having them." "Done," Graham said immediately. "And fourth," Dr. Kim said, looking at Margot, "she needs a consistent, knowledgeable advocate, someone who understands medications, who can monitor for side effects during the taper, who can communicate with me about any concerns. Margot, I know you're not currently practicing, but would you be willing to take on that role?" Margot felt tears pricking her eyes. "Yes, absolutely yes." "Good, then let's talk specifics about the medication taper." They spent the next hour going over the plan in detail. Which medications would be reduced first? What withdrawal symptoms to watch for? Warning signs that would require immediate medical attention? Support resources for both Natalie and Graham. When they finally returned to the examination room, Natalie looked up from her drawing with hopeful, exhausted eyes. "Did Dr. Kim figure out how to help me?" she asked. Graham knelt beside his daughter. "She did, sweetheart. It's going to take time, and it's going to be hard sometimes. But Dr. Kim is going to help you get off all those medications that were making you feel bad. And Margot is going to be there every day to help you through it. And I'm going to be there too, not working all the time, not hiding in my office, but actually there. Is that okay?" Natalie threw her arms around her father's neck. "That's more than okay. That's everything I wanted.